I'm Mona. I have been married to my husband Samuel for just about a year now. Dreaming of living in a newly built house, we happily live together in a cheap, small apartment. My husband's family home is about a 5-minute walk away, but his parents rarely come to visit us. Samuel mentioned,
"My mom doesn't want to be the kind of person who bullies her daughter-in-law, so even though we live close by, she makes an effort not to visit us too much."
Hearing that made me like my in-laws even more. One of the biggest worries after a marriage is bullying from the in-laws, but it seems I do not have to worry about any of that. Moreover, I think that if I were ever bullied, I would strongly resist. Since I was a child, my parents would tell me,
"If someone does something to you, return twice as much back at them. Then no one will mess with you."
However, it didn't seem like I would have to fight with my in-laws, so I was living without any stress regarding family relationships. Several years passed since I started working, and both of our jobs were going well. So we started having more conversations about whether to buy a house or not. Around that time, my parents, who heard about this, made us an attractive offer.
"Actually, we were thinking of giving you our land when you decide to build a house. So, use it as you like."
They said this and gave us their land. My parents aren't wealthy, but my grandfather hit the jackpot with an investment long ago, so they gave us quite a good piece of land. When they talked to my grandfather about giving the land to us, he said, "Do as you like since it's yours now." When I told my husband about it, he immediately said,
"Let's take advantage of their generosity since we have the chance. We owe your parents big time."
And don't forget to thank my grandfather too. It's his land after all. So on weekends, we started visiting model homes, looking at the luxurious homes of our bosses at work, and visiting agents planning to build new condominiums, discussing what kind of house we want to live in. Sometimes planning is more fun than actually executing, isn't it? One particularly enjoyable day, something that would ruin everything, began with a phone call from my mother-in-law. When my husband took the call from his mother, it seemed she had heard somewhere that we were planning to build a new house, and she asked him, "If you're going to build a new house, why not make it a 2-family house so we can live together?" My husband and I were speechless. We never imagined that my mother-in-law, who had rarely interfered, would want to live together with us. After a few seconds of silence, my husband gave some non-committal responses, continuing to avoid a direct answer. It's no wonder he reacted that way. We hadn't even considered the option of a 2-family house. We were planning to have rooms for our future children, but a 2-family house would mean rethinking our plans from scratch. However, I worried that outright rejecting the idea would sour our relationship with my in-laws, so I struggled with how to handle it, just like my husband. We had a monthly dinner at my in-laws' house, and so we went to have dinner with them. Tyler, my brother-in-law, who lives as a single father, was also there, and my mother-in-law brought up the topic again. "Have you thought about what I mentioned last time? About the 2-family house? I think it's a great idea, but what do you think? Of course, we'll contribute financially, and if we sell this place, it will bring in quite a sum. Plus, when you have children, we'll be right there to help you out if there's any trouble. See? It's a win-win." She quickly listed the benefits of a 2-family house. I tried to interact several times, but my mother-in-law kept taking those moments away. Well, she had a point. Having help nearby when having a child would be appreciated, and the financial support was appealing as well. However, I believed that my husband and I could handle any problems that my in-laws could solve. Moreover, I'd rather rely on my own parents than risk increasing the chances of being bullied by my in-laws. Seeing me deep in thought, my mother-in-law said, "Do you dislike the idea of living with us that much? I thought you didn't dislike me, but was I wrong?" It felt like she was pretending to be sad, so I ignored her, and we quickly left my in-laws' house. After that, my mother-in-law started calling my husband every day, repeating the same conversation, which began to stress me out. What are your thoughts?
Maybe a two-family house isn't so bad. I mean, having my parents around is reassuring, but I don't want to spend less time with you.
After much deliberation, we decided to decline my mother-in-law's proposal. We wanted to prioritize our own time together. We hoped that if we explained properly, she would understand. At the monthly dinner, we went to my in-laws' house to tell them our decision. Nervously, we tried to convey our thoughts to my in-laws when my mother-in-law spoke first. Oh, about the two-family house, I've already made arrangements.
Huh? What?
As we were dumbfounded, my mother-in-law continued. And Tyler will be living with us too. He's having a hard time as a single father, you know. Let's help him with his children. Plus, if you can gain experience taking care of kids now, it'll be easier when you have your own. You should definitely do it. We were so shocked by her statements that we forgot why we had come. Seeing our silence, my mother-in-law assumed we had no objections and proceeded with construction of the house, incorporating my father-in-law's and brother-in-law's opinions. Of course, we didn't do nothing. We tried multiple times to convey our decision to my in-laws, but they always said they were busy and would talk later. Meanwhile, the construction plan for the two-family house progressed. Since my in-laws were covering the costs of the additional fees to make it a two-family house, our financial burden wasn't too significant. However, not only would we be living with my in-laws, but also with my brother-in-law, a single father, and taking care of his children. Just thinking about it made me anxious. My husband said,
We can't stop this anymore. Let's just give up.
He threw in the towel and was of no help. I also judged that resisting alone would be futile. Then the blueprints were completed, and the interior tiles, flooring, etc. were decided. By now, we should have secured the funds, but the promised amount from my in-laws for the two-family house was never transferred. My husband contacted his mother, asking her to transfer the money quickly. We're actually short of money because of sudden needs. Could you advance it from us? We'll pay it back in a month. They claimed they couldn't pay now, but the building of the house was already in action and it was too late to cancel everything. We could barely cover their share, but we shouldn't have to in the first place. My husband and I were frustrated with my mother-in-law's selfishness.
Hey, you can't casually ask us to cover such a large amount.
As my husband was yelling at her,
Come on, she says she'll pay in a month, so it's fine. Has Mom ever lied before?
My brother-in-law suddenly intervened. Taken aback by him joining, my husband had no further words, so we agreed to wait for a month and expected the payment from my mother-in-law. I decided to consult my parents about this. The next day, I went to my parents' house and explained the situation, asking if we could put the plan on hold.
We intended to give you that land, and if they're saying they'll pay later, we'll cover it for you.
Really?
Of course. Your happiness is the most important to us. Don't give up on your dream home. Stop the two-family house for your future children, too.
Oh, thank you. As I was tearing up with gratitude, my mother said,
And if they were always at your house, it would be hard for me to visit. And I'd want to be the one taking good care of my grandchildren,
she said with a grin. Thanks to my mother, the construction progressed smoothly, and finally our dream home was completed. A month later, the promised money from my mother-in-law wasn't transferred. Meanwhile, hearing about the completion, my in-laws started moving their belongings in before us. This house is small for a two-family home. Where is my room? We ended up not making it a two-family house because they didn't transfer the money. So there was no room for my mother-in-law, but she kept moving her stuff into the room we had planned for future children. She even invited friends to show off the house as a housewarming party. This is our long-awaited two-family home. It might be a bit small, but it has a splendid garden for some home gardening. I'll share the veggies I harvest here with you." She acted as if they had built the house with their own money. Her friends, unaware of the circumstances, praised the house and soon left. After the move settled, 2 months passed without payment from my in-laws. Even when my husband pressed them, "Well, make sure to pay soon," was all they said. However, one day my mother-in-law suddenly told us, "We've decided not to sell our house. Instead, Tyler and his children will live there." And just like that, my mother-in-law openly declared they wouldn't pay. But I wasn't surprised. My husband and I had discussed many times that they probably never intended to pay. "Recently, I've realized that this house is a bit small for all of us. So, could you move out? My friends want to stay over sometimes, and I want to use the house more freely. Is that okay?" My husband raised his voice.
"That's not what we agreed on. Why should we leave our own house?"
"Well, you both work, right? So you're hardly home anyway. And you don't have kids, so you can manage elsewhere. Besides, Mona's family is wealthy, right? Get them to build you a new house."
I was appalled by her selfishness,
And so was my husband.
"You haven't paid a single cent of the promised amount. You never intended to pay from the start, did you?"
"We decided to let Tyler and his kids live there. What's wrong with giving a house to my own son and lovely grandchildren?" My mother-in-law was starting to get defensive, and we realized we wouldn't get anywhere from this argument. That night we discussed in our bedroom.
"Mom plans to kick us out and take over this house."
Seems like it. And it turned out just as my husband said. My mother-in-law's attacks continued, with daily snide remarks and harassment towards me. "If you don't want to be bullied, give up the house." This is what they call the classic mother-in-law problem. I never thought it would happen to me, but experiencing it was more bothersome than I imagined. When we lived in that small apartment, we hardly interacted with them. I was foolish not to foresee this, but with the spirit of fighting back, I came up with a plan. The plan was devised by me, my husband, my parents, and my grandfather. To execute the plan, we decided to leave the house. My husband told my in-laws.
"We're moving out. You want to have friends over, right? You'd be happier that way."
My mother-in-law's face lit up with joy. We moved into a newly built apartment we had our eyes on, returning to paying rent for a living. Reminds me of when we were newlyweds.
"Sure does."
Remembering our early married life in that apartment, we lived peacefully. A week later, the phone rang. My husband answered.
"That's great news. When should we expect it?"
Hearing this, I was sure our plan had succeeded. The day after we discussed the plan with my parents and grandfather, we put the house on the market. A buyer was found, and they wanted the house vacated in 3 weeks. We showed the house to acquaintances, colleagues, and others interested while my in-laws were away. One of the families decided to buy it, which was the news we received. We hired 2 large moving trucks and had movers pack and load everything away quickly. We timed it while my in-laws were at an amusement park with Tyler. It's about when they were probably having fun with that mouse. Since they planned to stay overnight, we prepared in advance. The packing and loading by professionals went smoothly and finished faster than expected. We waited outside the house and my in-laws returned in the evening. Sensing something was off, my mother-in-law anxiously entered the house and screamed. "What is this? What's going on? Where did our things go?" My father-in-law was equally agitated. My husband and I calmly observed from outside, and when they came out, we revealed the truth. My husband said,
"Everything is loaded in this truck. The address is on a note on the truck. So go there. It's a bit small, but it's enough for 2 people. Might be tight for hosting friends, though. This house is sold now, so it's someone else's."
My in-laws were stunned. "You sold it? It was our house. How could you?"
"Our house? The land is in Mona's parents' name, and the house is in our name. We had the right to sell it. You never paid a cent, yet you called it your house? Huh, how shameless.
My husband's unexpected words silenced my in-laws. Before we left, my husband added,
We covered everything until now, but you handle unloading. You can afford it, right?
We can't.
Yes, I know you can. You stole Mona's belongings and sold them, depositing the money in your account.
How did you... It doesn't matter. Oh, you don't have to repay that money. Consider it a gift from us as we're cutting ties with you.
Goodbye, and we won't see each other again.
My husband declared his estrangement and took my hand, and we left with that. After that, we informed my parents and grandfather of the plan's success, and they were very pleased. Additionally, my grandfather, knowing we were planning to continue living in the rented apartment, said,
Actually, I still have another land left, so I will give it to you. I will also cover half the costs, so go build a new house.
6 months later, we were able to complete our dream house. Although it's a bit far from the city, the air is fresh, the neighbors are kind, and we are very happy. As for my in-laws, we don't know if they went to the designated address. Apparently, they contacted my parents asking for financial assistance. Of course, my parents firmly refused. They told them not to involve themselves with our family anymore. They asked my brother-in-law to take them back, but he refused, telling them that he is getting remarried next year and will live with his wife. My husband apologized to my parents for his terrible parents, but my parents reassured him by saying,
From now on, we are your real parents. Depend on us as much as you want, as our son.
They encouraged us to join a home security service just in case. They had already told the company that if my in-laws showed up here, they should be turned away. We also have a dog in the yard, so they wouldn't dare to trespass our property. Now, our new life begins without any worries about my in-laws. In a few years, we will likely have children and build a happy family. We will not let anyone disturb this happiness. That's what we vowed to ourselves. I'm glad that Mona was able to cut ties with those terrible parents-in-law. It must have been hard for her husband, but I'm glad he was on Mona's side. Did you enjoy this video? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and also subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.